Welcome. As we begin to arrive today, I invite you to set aside any distractions. And those of you who are willing, would love if you could write in the chat box where you're here from. I'm aware that this group of people comes from so many different places, and some of you I know well. Others of you I don't, but I love to see names and where you're here from. So if you want to just mark that in the chat box as we're preparing to begin. And I'll just let you know, many of you have heard me announce that the Shift Network Meditation and Mindfulness Summit, which I have co-hosted and is pre-recorded, begins today, and it will run through Friday afternoon. If you haven't registered, I highly recommend this. And you can simply go to my website, either to the offerings page or this month page, and sign up for free. And I'll share that a couple of highlights today at 1:00 p.m. Pacific time and 4:00 Eastern time is an interview I did with Joanna Macy, who's one of my dearest mentors, long-term teachers and friend, 91 years old, and Lama Rod Owens, who's another friend and someone whose work I find really important in today's world. I recommend that you listen to Lama Rod. I think it's 4:00 p.m. Pacific time. Pam Weiss is earlier today as well, and she has a book coming out about a fierce feminine Buddhism. Pam was one of the first people that I met who inspired my practice when I was just about 20 years old and spending some time at Green Gulch Farm Zen Center. So I'm going to take a look in the chat box while we're preparing to get started. And hi, Nina, New Mexico, Jen in Oregon. I see New Jersey, San Diego, Columbus, Indiana. And I see Barcelona, Florida, India, Bangalore, Santa Barbara, and I'm here in North Carolina where it's pouring rain today. So as we get started, please find the most comfortable position for your body today. And I acknowledge that we'll likely be a smaller group today because the summit is beginning, but there's an opportunity to listen to those sessions later, okay? And as I was talking to a dear friend yesterday about the vital spirit of kindness and how this simple teaching of kindness is woven through every single aspect of this practice. Something so simple as kindness, one of the most profound teachers in today's world, because of course we know that even though as a modern society we claim to be highly advanced, and maybe we are in the ways of arts and music and defense and technology, but we can acknowledge quite honestly that we are in the dark ages when it comes to kindness and compassion. And the beauty of that is that we are all, as we show up to practice, helping ourselves and one another to remember, as if waking up from a case of mistaken identity, the kindness that is innate, the seed of kindness that can expand and grow so deeply and thoroughly within our lives. I want to pause before I continue and just ask for feedback if the sound is loud and clear today. So maybe just a little bit of feedback on the chat box. Great. Thank you. Thank you all. And so as we move into today's session, let's consider the invitation to plant the seed of kindness ever more deeply in our lives. One of the things that we're doing in practice is we are becoming more awake to, opening our eyes to all of those places that we might not have been aware. More kindness is needed, that we might not have been aware. Oh wow, I haven't been treating my body in the most subtle manner, moment by moment, with kindness. Oh wow, I've been perceiving through a lens of limited assumption of generosity and kindness in certain relationships. I've been perceiving through a lens of I versus you, rather than the possibility of we. And then always bridging our personal practice to the world at large. Fascinating. How can I hope for a kinder and more sustainable world, some real systemic change that we all know in our hearts needs to happen, if I'm not willing to take the first step and keep opening my eyes each day without judgment, with fascination, to how we may not be fully aligned with kindness, and how there's a simple invitation to remember our choice in each moment to realign. This is the most powerful force, kindness. So as you settle in today, you are welcome to either close your eyes fully or allow your eyes to rest open, but in a soft, gentle, receptive gaze, resting your hands in your lap, and just taking a minute to bring awareness to your pelvic floor and bring awareness to the invitation to relax and let yourself be held by the surface beneath you. It's nice to create the experience of a firm tripod with your lower body, which can support your upper body to be open with ease. And so this means that since I'm sitting in a chair today, my sits bones and feet are firmly planted. If I was sitting on a meditation cushion, my knees and sits bones would be planted like a tripod. So let's take a few deep breaths together. Inviting relaxation through slowing down and breathing a little more deeply. Aware of our body's relationship with gravity, and beginning to become more aware of the space within and out, this returning to spacious awareness being such a foundation for practice. And as you allow your breath to return to its natural rhythm, be curious as you notice what that is today, continuing to feel the air as it enters your body, fills your body, and leaves your body. And as we begin today's meditation, I'd like to guide us through a short body scan. In any inquiry about kindness, our body is such an honest communicator. And so just gently bringing awareness to the very top of your head, just allowing the touch of awareness to invite a little softening, and being aware nothing to do or fix or change. Aware of the muscles of your face and your neck, shoulder blades, clavicles. And as you gently scan your body, you're not trying to fix or change anything, you're just noticing. And you can notice where there's a part of your body that needs more kindness. You can notice how simply the touch of awareness invites a softening. And as you bring awareness now into your chest and upper back, take a moment to feel the expansion and contraction of your rib cage and lungs while you breathe into the center of your chest. Gently moving down now to your solar plexus, a place we often hold tension. So if you notice that, rather than there being judgment, just see if you can invite a little more space around it. And bringing awareness further down your torso into your belly. Just breathing and noticing. Continuing to invite relaxation of the rest of your body. Gently moving down now into your hips, pelvic floor, sits bones, base of your spine. And as you continue to notice your breath moving through your body, gently move down to your hamstrings, the tops of your thighs, and slowly down your legs, simply being aware and kind. Knees, the front of your knees and the back of your knees. And slowly moving down your calves, all the way into your ankles, the tops of your feet, the sides and bottom of your feet, and your toes, just feeling the point of contact between your feet and the surface beneath you. And it's helpful before settling in to sitting to also come back up to the tops of your shoulders and just noticing. Gently glide down the tops of your arms, noticing your elbows, your lower arms, and now simply being aware of your hands resting in your lap. As we begin to go deeper in this experience of stillness, silence, I invite you to pay attention with kindness to everything that arises in the internal landscape, the outer landscape, allowing your breath and body to anchor you. Practicing together the radical kindness of allowing ourselves to be here as we are, resting in the safety of our own skin, further resting as if being held by the larger field of interconnection, the spacious, non-judgmental, compassionate awareness. That is at the backdrop of every arising and every passing, every moment. As we meditate together, remembering the radical kindness of nothing to fix or solve or change, nothing to do, nowhere to get to. Permission to fully let go of striving and efforting. And in the spirit of kindness, just check in gently with yourself, noticing if your relationship to stillness in this moment feels kind. So noticing if your physical body might have any holding going on that you can allow to soften. Noticing if there's any expectation or extra effort arising in your practice that you can simply set down. However you have arrived here today, whatever is moving through you on the level of mind, body, emotion, remembering that all of you is welcome here. Remembering that stillness can hold it all, and so allow yourself to feel held, to rest. And any time in meditation that challenge arises in the way of difficult sensation, a heavy or painful emotion that's hard to be with, the seduction of a busy mind, we can trust that everything that is arising is a teacher of kindness. How can I meet this too? With kindness, with love, with care, acceptance. Just being with what is, without needing to impose our ideas onto life, without turning away from that which is uncomfortable, without numbing ourselves to what is real by getting caught in story, fantasy, future, past. Just being here, intimate with our naked experience. allowing life to move through us. As I personally am sitting today with some neck pain, I want to remind anyone here today who's working with physical pain that the encouragement always is, see if you can sit with the sensation for a minute longer than you tell yourself you can. And then, gently, kindly, make a subtle shift in your position in whatever way feels authentic, so that we are never ever turning meditation into a contest, okay? We're never turning physical stillness into something oppressive. We are working with this body as this body is. We are honoring this being as this being is, yeah? So please begin now to deepen your breath. With each exhalation, letting yourself empty completely. And I invite you now to rest a hand at the center of your heart and to take a moment with eyes still resting to connect with gratitude. Just acknowledging that which in your life, in your being, in this world, you do not take for granted. Acknowledging how grateful you are. Noticing how you experience gratitude in your body. Let's take in one more deep breath together. Breathing in deeply. Exhaling fully. Welcome, everyone. I'm feeling grateful to be back here with you again. Really feeling grateful for this experience of Sangha, of community. And so in a moment, we'll open the field for questions. And I'll just remind you that whatever questions or inquiries are alive for you today can go into the Q&A box. I'll remind you that all questions are welcome. All questions are golden. And if any of you have been getting talked out by the little voice inside your head of asking a question or asking for support in your personal practice right now, and practice is our entire life, so anything goes, then I encourage you especially to see about leaning forward today into that and giving yourself a little more generosity. And I'll make a few announcements before we get started. One is, you know, today I started off with a focus on kindness. It just cannot be more important for us to acknowledge the choice in every moment is always to open ourselves up even more widely to kindness, what more widely beyond what we have experienced yet in this life, more widely beyond what we think is possible in our world. And, you know, practice is always inviting us to bridge personal practice to the collective transformation that each and every one of us is a part of. And yesterday I was so heartened to learn about a couple of really kind responses to COVID-19. Some of you have probably learned about Amsterdam through some coaching from, I'm trying to remember which university. Amsterdam is choosing to follow up from this stay-at-home period to help the city to regenerate through a no-growth economy model. This is something that could transform our entire world. A no-growth economy model, which is really based on making sure each and every member of that society has all of their basic needs met. And basic needs are inclusive, not just to the income you need and the healthy food you need and the healthcare you need, but also quality of life and all that has been deemed part of a sustainable society of well-being. I also learned of certain other countries in Europe that are really taking seriously now, finally, the cradle-to-cradle model, which takes recycling to more of an expression of radical recycling and acknowledges that there are none of our resources which are worthy of being wasted. So everything should be done in the cradle-to-cradle model of ecological design. And I just encourage people to open yourselves up to finding out some of this good world news going on. And even though the leadership in this country right now is so insanely disheartening, is so frustrating, and to me heartbreaking, that there is possibility emerging many places for how this collective experience can be the thing that helps us to make some big shifts in our systems, in our ways of life. And we can all know with certainty that there have been so many examples of brilliant civilizations, ancient civilizations, indigenous land-based societies that know how to design systems for human health, well-being, long-term sustainability, living in partnership with nature. And so the invitation of this time is huge. And I firmly believe that it really does begin with each and every one of us, our willingness to use this time as a laboratory, a period of Zen investigation, a time to do some inner transformation. And the place to start is, where am I with kindness? And can I hold this inquiry gently and fiercely every single day? And remember, many of you have heard me teach about this before, but kindness has nothing to do with being nice. Kindness can take the expression of gentle compassion and fierce compassion. Nice tends to be more a conditioned idea that we've internalized to be a good person, the right person, to be liked, to whatever it is. I should be nice all the time. And nice can mean abandoning myself to be perceived as nice by someone else. Kindness operates within and out at the same time. Kindness and compassion, you rest in that place, in the field of kindness yourself as you express it in the world. So it's never about choosing I versus you. It's not about seeing through the lens of I versus you. It's about we consciousness, which is something so much greater. Yeah? So that said, let's move into questions and just remain in that place of deep listening and rest as we do. And I would ask, Jennifer Holm, would you have the willingness to read our questions today in the Q&A box? I'm going to wait a minute and see if Jen can unmute herself and if she's able to do that. And
Deborah, or sorry, Eden. This is Sarah. I don't think we've set her up as a host, so I can read for today.
Well then, Sarah, thank you so much for your willingness. That would be great. I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, the first one is, how do I heal complex relationship trauma without reifying the separate self in the process? Or where could I look for resources? I've experienced very intense dissociative PTSD episodes as a result of years of verbal abuse, and I'm scared of getting caught in those personal mini hell realms again. I am in trauma therapy as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. And my first encouragement for you is to read my book on relational mindfulness, a handbook for deepening our connection with ourselves, each other, our world, because it offers such practical and accessible tools and insights for really committing, like making your lifelong commitment to your relationship with yourself. Every relationship we're going to have with anyone out there stems from the quality, the integrity in our relationship with ourself. And so this is really the starting point. And then it also offers a lot of encouragements for how to stay in the place of we consciousness and how to shift from I versus you to we consciousness when that happens. But the most important thing in your inquiry is this, because you've named trauma, so many people listening can relate to this question, okay? If you would be willing to send me an email, there is a 20-minute guided practice. It's recorded. It's anyone who would like access to it is welcome. That's about how to use triggers that come up in the relational field and also triggers that just come up in everyday life as the portal for deeper self-compassion. And so it's very specific. Right now I'm leading a course for couples on love relationship awakening for committed couples, and we're having an amazing time. And just that tool, just so that everyone who's in relationship with other human beings has a way when the triggers, small or large, come up, and they do, and that's the whole point. Everything that has not yet come up and been met by compassion will arise as soon as we begin the path of awareness, and it will certainly come up in the beautiful and messy realm of human relationships. So to have that basic tool of how can I, each time something gets triggered, really, really attend within and listen deeply enough to find out who is it in me that needs compassion and what's going on here when I'm really seeing clearly that I'm not at all aware of when I'm just seeing it through judgment or, oh no, or I don't have what it takes to meet this, okay? So that's my encouragement. Read the book and please reach out for this practice for me. And thank you so much for that question. Yeah, let's all take a deep breath. Just pausing in between each question to integrate, kind of noticing how each person's inquiry impacts you, okay? And Sarah, who's next?
The next question is, what suggestions might you offer about encountering a pattern that is difficult, painful, or challenging when it emerges in meditation to help dissipate it or resolve it?
Okay, well, ditto to what I just answered for the first person. Read the book, get that recording. But basically, here's what I want to describe. Number one, we're so used to in this, in the dominant paradigm, this notion of tools that we need to get somewhere and things that we need to do to fix and solve. And there are certainly plenty of tools in the larger spiritual toolbox of practice, but really it's so simple. We're learning how to allow harm to be undone by resting in the place of non-doing itself, by resting in the place of receptivity and openness, and then allowing to dissolve the habit patterns that have burdened us, allowing to dissolve the limiting beliefs that have oppressed us and confused us, allowing to dissolve just some of the karmic knots. Those might manifest physically. There are people who after a meditation retreat, just the first 10-day silent meditation retreat I did, I think I was 20 years old, I literally came out of that with like a whole new body. So much tension had just dissolved through sitting. And of course, sitting was hard as well. Sitting still for hours was difficult, but it was as I learned the quality of sitting in the place of non-efforting and not pushing against what arose. So what I'm inviting is two things. Number one, just as you sit and you learn, and it happens over time, you learn to soften and to rest in awareness itself. There's no doing, there's no involvement needed. You're learning to rest in awareness itself. And through that, we remember that who we are is awareness itself, the vast, limitless, interconnected field of awareness. That's one, just letting it dissolve by our willingness to be with it. Number two, sometimes gets a little more involved, and it's like, oh, today I can really feel like I can't even find that place. I can't rest in that place, or I'm sitting with a particular thing, a heartache, or a major disappointment, or a humiliation, or some uncomfortable human experience. So it's a sense of learning to befriend that part of us, to welcome that part of us, even if it's a part of me who's in physical pain, to be met with welcome when you're in pain, to be met with welcome and absolute acceptance when you're feeling bad about something. That's transformative. That's love. So that begins to shift. And then you literally, through this practice, and I mean through formal sitting meditation and through the informal part of our practice, which happens throughout every single day of our lives once we're on the path, we are learning how to befriend every single aspect of our being, even those that we've tried, it hasn't worked well, but we've tried to push into the shadow. I'm going to push this as soon as we have the label shadow or darkness versus light, that very favorite duality. We can then justify pushing everything we're uncomfortable into it and justifying not accessing the strength of our heart, which actually says, I'm happy to welcome all of it. I'm willing to welcome all of it. I don't actually have a problem with that. And so as we befriend those parts of ourselves, we're doing so for all of humanity. Everything that you experience inside yourself exists in humanity. And so then the beauty is we are participating in a collective healing at the same time as we're participating in a personal healing. So thank you for that question. Yeah. And let's all pause for a minute. And you can just notice right now, and as you embark on the rest of your day, who is it within you that needs more friendship today? Yeah? Who might be arising in the mirror of this crisis time, probably many different parts that are uncomfortable to be with, painful to be with, and that's the invitation, to be with them, to begin these friendships. That will change your life, yeah? So what's our next question, Sarah?
I have been spending a lot of time in quarantine, just staring at stuff on my phone. I'm sure this is an avoidance tactic and an attempt to connect with others. There are other things I'd like to do that would be acts of self-care and not just self-improvement acts, but I haven't been able to get myself to do them and to pull myself away from the amount of time staring at my phone. I'd love your coaching on this struggle.
Okay. So, first of all, just some wise words from Fierce Compassion. Get off your phone. Get off your phone. You don't need right now a bunch more screen time. It's not what's going to nourish your heart and help you to feel held and supported in this time. A good practical transition would be, if you want to be on your phone a little longer, use it over the next few days to listen rather than view, because folks, we don't want too much screen time. It's not healthy for the human endocrine system. It's not good for our eyes. Right amount, right relationship. But you can use as a bridge listening to the Shift Summit which starts today and goes through Friday, and allow some of those conversations to inspire you, to point out some other possibilities for ways of being with yourself. There's some beautiful conversations, lovely conversation with Rebecca Lee about how she began to cultivate more kindness in her life when she didn't know that was a possibility. A conversation with me on Thursday about remembering the already awakened state that might offer you some more sense of how to use this time, but really some heartfelt conversations for anyone who works with physical challenges and physical illness. A great conversation with Amma Thanasanti about working with illness. But what I want to encourage for you is, in making that transition, just see if you can bring gentle investigation to what is it I'm turning away from, and who are the parts of me that I turn away from each time I choose to engage instead on this phone. And to get out your journal and just start generating a little list for yourself. And you might see a bit at first and then see more, let it fill itself in this week. So practicing mindful inquiry around what is it that I'm turning away from, and what's the feeling, the sensation in my body that comes around that thing? What's the self-talk? What is it that I'm saying to myself? What are the feelings, the emotions? And as we begin to open our eyes to that more, naturally, our hearts begin to open more. Oh, wow. Gosh, I didn't realize that you were feeling so sad about maybe being alone, quarantined during this time. I'm so sorry you're feeling so sad. Let's change gears and really sense into how to nourish you now. Oh gosh, I didn't realize you were feeling so much anxiety and fear about the future, about this great unknown that we're facing. And we begin to open our eyes, and it's quite easy to see how to meet those parts with kindness. But first is the investigation of what am I turning away from? And just a suggestion, I have a teacher who says every single time you ever find yourself in judging mind or complaining mind, you can just pause and notice what am I uncomfortable with? What's happening in this moment that I'm uncomfortable with, that I am escaping through judgment and complaint. That's a really fun practice. So to spend a little time with that, okay? And thank you for that question. You know, I'll also name that some of you have practiced with me through the online forum Sangha Live before, and we are in conversation right now about setting a date soon where we add a third weekly offering, so that Tuesdays and Thursdays are sitting meditation, and then there's a weekly offering that is focused entirely on relational mindfulness. And in that time, that people would be guided to connect in pairs and in threesomes to practice relational mindfulness, and to get to have some very beautiful connections and conversations. And I think during this time of quarantine and social distancing, that will be so valuable. So yeah. Who else?
The next question is, I've been struggling to access, and most importantly, believe the radical self-kindness needed to accompany me through the loss of a friendship due to an action of mine. I am struggling to not take it personally and regret the lack of consent for repair. I see how I try to make some meaning about myself, how I experience shame, a want to control and fix the situation. I think I know intellectually it's best to meet it with kindness, tend to the parts that need it, and drop it when I can. Any guidance you think could help here? Thank you.
Okay. So this is something that is one of those places where it's helpful to stay as far away from judgment as possible. In fact, it's always helpful to stay as far away as possible from judgment. Judgment never has useful information for us. But something that many of you have heard me speak of before is there's a way in which we can learn to cultivate gratitude in those situations where we get real feedback from life that helps us to transform, or that informs how we engage with life beyond that point. And so what I mean is, here's a relationship that whatever happened, you didn't feel that you showed up to the best of your capacity or from your full authenticity. That's what I heard you say, and you're experiencing the pain of that loss. And I'm sure everyone listening can relate to the pain of either losing a relationship they loved, or the pain at some point in life of, gosh, I wish I had shown up better. Ouch. But what's helpful is if we can have gratitude for the feedback we receive through our own bodies, rather than through judgment of how it feels to know we could have showed up more authentically, how it feels to acknowledge that with whatever was going on with us, or perhaps whatever separate self-ego story we were caught in, or whatever suffering we weren't addressing, we can find gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for letting me see this clearly now, so that moving forth, I might engage in even more authentic and loving ways. And you can also notice where there might be a request for forgiveness needed, self-forgiveness. If you go to the video page of my website, there's about a 15-minute forgiveness practice that I highly recommend. So gratitude and forgiveness. And what you just described is a great moment to see, oh wow, gosh, the disappointed, sad, just really sad one needs attention now, needs friendship, and giving yourself that, okay? Today, Lama Rod, in his interview, we talked quite a bit about grief and conscious grieving, and he's, I think, one of the most important voices on collective grief right now. And so I would encourage you to listen to that as well. Yeah. And let's take in a breath before we continue. And maybe just tell me how many more we have so I can be wise with time. Yeah.
There are 2 questions that are inquiries, and 2 that are around logistics.
Okay, great. Maybe we'll hear the logistics first. Yeah.
Sure. So the first is, where do we find the Relational Mindfulness meeting, and when is it?
Well, it has not been posted yet. I'm coming out of a really busy time. Just to be transparent, I am a teacher and practitioner of personal sustainability, of balance, of deep time, and I've recently just overdone it. So I'm giving myself at least a couple of weeks of really slowing down so I can walk my talk, and within probably the next week we'll be picking a date and we'll share it with you all. So you want to pay attention either to my Instagram, or it's always good if you sign up for my newsletter, then you get all the updates of upcoming events. And today, Nina Simons and I opened up an event. Some of you have practiced with us both together. I love collaborating with Nina, who's the co-founder of Pioneers and Every Woman's Leadership. And I can't, for the life of me in this moment, remember the brilliant title of our event. I can just tell you I love it. And it stems from the work that reconnects, the Joanna Macy work that I've also been teaching for many years. But I want people to know about that. So there's one more logistical question. Yeah?
Yes. Will the Mindfulness Summit interviews be available at scheduled times only, or for a specified amount of time afterwards?
It's available for a specified amount of time afterwards, and there's a handful that I'll be posting on my website afterwards as well next week. Yeah, but it doesn't go on forever. Good to sign up sooner rather than later, and then you can choose which ones and when you can listen to them. Okay. Yeah. And how about our inquiry questions?
The first is, a fear that I'm noticing in my separate self is that through the practice of waking up into my heart, my experience of life and the way I relate to things is going to become more and more unrelatable to my loved ones, and that I will become very alone and not have anyone who understands and really sees me.
I would love to ask for a little bit of clarification so I know if I'm with you. I'm curious. I hear the fear that my loved ones, those who have known me, won't understand me anymore, won't fully see me. I'll be feeling alone. But what I'm not clear on is, what is it that's happening in your life right now? Is it practice and how practice is changing you, perhaps? Is it something else that's triggering this fear that you will end up alone and not being fully seen? So could you write in your response to that while we answer the other question, and then we'll come back to it? Yeah?
Okay. The other question is, I love the topic of kindness. I love the no growth economy concept, as I've been wondering how we might grow from all of this on micro and macro levels. I don't believe we can ever go back to normal, and frankly, at this point, I don't want to, though I know that a lot of people will try to do so. On the topic of kindness and normality, my neighbor really gets under my skin with his anger and loudness, and even his bumper stickers, which are just very insulting. How can I adjust myself to not be so irked by him and be more kind?
Okay. All right. So yes, just to underline, the very, very worst thing that could happen from this time is going back to quote unquote normal, because our normal needs a great amount of healing. And what I want to share in response to your question is, right now, just one encouragement, and that's that the first relational mindfulness principle is intention, and it really points to just the power of intention, claiming our intention each day, that we're allowing our life to be a laboratory for remembering who we really are, that we're allowing the relational field to be a laboratory for making the shift from I versus you consciousness to we consciousness, that we're using what arises in life to be our teacher of love. And that intention, and we need to remember it each day, can really, really empower us and help us to know the choice that we have in every moment. In this kind of example, which I'm sure most everyone listening can relate to, whether it's the annoying neighbor or an annoying relative or whatever it is, yeah? That person or those particular qualities that get under your skin. And I'll just share that, I'm living now in the countryside in Western North Carolina, and my husband and I had one of those moments the other night when it was a lovely spring night, windows open, and some neighbors living not too far away, who had apparently gotten drunk and gotten their guns out, decided to start having shooting practice. And I found it personally such a practice opportunity, especially as I was softening into that place of sleep, to deal with, to practice with the violence of even hearing gunshots. Yeah. And so what I want to encourage is this. We go into our reactions, our judgments, our, oh no, our, I can't deal with this. And when we remember, but I'm practicing we consciousness, and we conscious really involves a call to something bigger, then we can do this. We can bring just a little bit of acceptance. Okay, I'm opening my arms wide. They too are part of the we that I am committed to. They too are part of the we that I'm committed to bringing care to, even if the way they're being seems so unconscious or seems so not what I stand for or whatever. They're part of this we. Then we can bring our attention within. So in anything relationally, we want to start within and notice who in me suffers in the face of this trigger. Who is it in me? What is the response? And who do I become in response to that trigger? Maybe really, really angry, or maybe really, really scared, or maybe really, really feeling rejected. Whatever it is, it's to turn to that and to notice with non-judgmental awareness, to let yourself fully feel and drop into your body. What is the sensations of that in my body? What's the self-talk around that? What feelings arise? So you can really be with it. Just listening to it, feeling it, is being with it. And from that place, though that itself is an act of bringing compassion to this being, we sometimes get an even clearer instruction. Oh, wow, I really need to be reassured right now by a loving presence that it's okay, that I'm safe, that I can relax here, that I'm loved, or whatever the reassurance is. But that's my encouragement. Remember we consciousness, and see if you can just spread your wings a little bigger. Accept this too, and also look inside and inquire into your own trigger around it. One other piece to that, if you've worked with me long term, I do a lot of work with projection. And so it's always fun, and I emphasize the word fun because it's very enlivening, to look out and see those people who annoy us or who trigger us. What are the specific qualities in them that we're so annoyed by? And then to trace that back to ourselves, because you spot it, you got it, even if you just have the seed of it, or even if you have it in a form that you've always pushed into shadow or turned away from. I have a thing about loud people, so I'm going to push away my own loudness and just emphasize quiet, or whatever it is. To do that investigation around projection too. Yeah, it's a good one. And for all of us, it's like when we witness other people's unconsciousness, can we pause long enough to go beyond the conditioned reactivity to a little bit of a deeper place, and at the same time, given that we are part of the natural feedback system of the collective, let that really inform us. Oh, wow, I really want to be present enough to not be unconscious towards other people. I really want to be present enough to see those places that I might not have seen yet, where I'm not bringing much consciousness to how I do things. Okay? So I appreciate that question. It's a good one. And is there one more, Sarah?
Well, there was the clarification.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for bringing us back to that. Let's hear it.
So the follow-up on the question. Yes, the fear is triggered by how practice is helping me relate to the world in ways that I feel are more compassionate, authentic, and wiser. But that are of course very different to how people who identify with the separate self see the world. And I feel that this often creates a bit of disconnect, or maybe it just shows the already existing disconnect more clearly. Okay, all right, great. And that clarification really helps, and that's what I suspected. My experience is that everyone who's on the path of waking up at some point has that fear arise. Oh no, I'm starting to let go of some of my own conditioned tendencies. Oh no. And they say, oh no, instead of, oh yes. I'm starting to see myself become more and more authentic. And the fear arises with the, oh no, this is now going to mean that those relationships aren't going to work anymore. Or this is now going to mean that I'm going to be too weird for everyday society. Or this is now going to mean that my family is going to reject me, or whatever it is. So my first encouragement is to really acknowledge that this is a shared experience and practice that comes up to be navigated. And it's not your heart's fear, it's ego's fear. It's ego's fear, and it's also ego's way of saying, in response to all this growth you've been doing, hold on, this might not be safe. Hold on, this might not be okay. So be wary of trusting it. Be wary of trusting it. And there's a point in practice where we can start. It's like we haven't sort of let go of the root of duality yet, but we're starting to. And so we see ourselves changing, but then we're still very aware, almost hyper aware. And this may or may not be happening with you. This duality of like
consciousness versus unconsciousness, consciousness and authenticity and what I'm really feeling happening here, and unconsciousness. So there was a period for me, and it was actually when I was a monk living at the Silent Zen monastery, that I was unaware of the degree to which I was holding this duality up that said, like, this is the truth, and this is the path, and this is the most conscious way to practice and place, and the rest of the world, there's an unconscious. And it's really not true, and it's really dangerous. And it's another reason I wrote Relational Mindfulness, just to help us to mix it up and really acknowledge that wherever we are is the perfect place to be practicing, and whomever we're with. You can think of practice so simple, like whomever you're with, even if they're people who don't share your ways or perspectives at all, you can show up in presence and openness and relaxation and deep listening rather than shallow listening. You can show up rooted in your deeper being rather than caught in a story or habit pattern of how people socialize. And it doesn't create a weirdness in the field. It certainly doesn't have to. It's also a learning curve, but it just adds to the field. You energetically invite people into we consciousness without even using words, is my experience. And the whole point of we consciousness is to remember that no one and nothing is left out, even people who appear to us to be very different. But there's a phase in practice when the work we have to do is all about addressing the lens of other. How do I other myself? How do I other beings? And I say beings because it's not just humans. So to bring some trust to the work, to notice when fear arises, that it is ego's fear, it's not your heart's fear, and to then reassure the one who's scared at the same time as part of you is so courageously doing your practice. That tension between fear and courage can be part of practice. It can be part of practice, and it's something that's a great teacher. How do we work with that tension so we can continue to affirm the courage and who we really are? And how freeing is that? Because then I get to let go of even more fear. Oh, wow, amazing. So you're welcome to sit with that answer and just see how it lands in you. And I think it's a topic we could go deeper in, but because of our time today, I'm going to end here. So thank you very much. Okay. And I'm just going to see if there's any more announcements for people. I'd like everyone to close your eyes and just take a couple of deep breaths for a moment. And there is one more announcement, and it is simply that I am in a place where I am very much in need of people who enjoy transcribing talks and teachings. It's a form of support I very much need, especially because my body can only do a limited amount of typing. And so anyone who perhaps has your dana donation for these teachings, people are welcome to offer monetary donations at any time that your heart is moved to do so. And this is another form of dana or service that I could really use to think about that, if that's something you have time and capacity for, okay? So please enjoy the summit today, and I look forward to seeing you again on Thursday. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here.